when you're aiming for something higher in your life, it is inevitable that you will hit a plateau. Especially if you're not just aiming for a little bit of improvement in your life. You're not aiming for just, a little bit more muscle, a little bit more money. Like you're aiming to drastically change your life. You've been inspired by the influences you're watching, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. You've been inspired to just aspire for higher things in life, right? Like I said, you don't just want a little bit more muscle. You want like a perfect physique. Or moving on to the higher things, you want a lot more money. You want financial freedom. You don't just want a little side hustle to make you an extra 1 or 2K a month so you can save up and go on a holiday. Like you want to be financially free so you can go on holiday whenever you want, right? You want this next level life, right? You want people to look at you and be like, that's the man. Now let's talk about your self-improvement journey, because if you're still watching self-improvement videos like this, you've probably hit yourself a plateau, right? I can speak about mine, and I think this is a lot of people's experiences where you started watching self-improvement videos a couple years ago, depending on when it came. But like for some people, it could have been during COVID. For other people, it could have been 2022. When Red Pill started blowing up, when your Andrew Tate started blowing up, when your Hamza started blowing up, whatever it was. But you started on self-improvement when you realized you don't really like your life. In fact, you hate your life and you want something completely different. Now, as I said, if you're on self-improvement and you just want like a little bit of improvement, you just want a little bit extra in your life, it's not that difficult. You just need to be, let's use the gym example, because that's the easiest one to use as an analogy, right? You just start working. You just need to start working out 3 times a week. You start eating better. You do that for like 6 months. You'll gain a little bit more muscle. You lose a bit more fat. Your physique will be slightly better, right? No, in fact, it'll be decently better. Like you will have a decent physique, right? You do that for a year, you will have a pretty good physique. But if you want like a proper, like, people look at your body and they're like, wow. Like you want a physique you look at in the morning every day and you are proud of. You're like, yes, like I love this physique. You need to hit the next level there. Like you need to be training at least 4 times a week. You can go to 6 times a week if you want, but I'm not going to get too much into the technicals of what it takes to build muscle. But you need to start training at least 4 times a week. Your diet needs to be on point. You need to be going into proper bulk and cut cycles. You need to be doing things properly, right? Intentionally, consistently, right? And then you need to do that over a long period of time. You need to be relentless, right? You do that for like 2 years, then you'll start getting like a really good physique where you look at yourself and you're like, damn, like this is a physique I could post on social media and be like, and that's pretty good. Right now, obviously, like that's a whole different story. Like with me, I'm not the biggest fan of like posting your physique on social media, right? Like we're doing this for, not that we're doing this for us, but physique wise, yeah, like for me when it comes to physique, yeah, I do it because I want to look good. But then apart from that, I don't want to do it because I want to look in the mirror and be proud of myself. Like I'm not posting it so I can get validation from other people. But that's beside the point, right? I go on so many tangents, guys. But yeah, going back to what I'm speaking about, you're gonna hit a plateau when you're on self-improvement. Even with the gym example, right? You'll get to a point. And again, for me, gym has probably been the most, I don't know. It's probably been the place where I can look at it and be like, you know what, like you got a pretty good physique. But even then, if you go through slumps, right, you go through points where you're like for me right now, I'm like my physique is good. It's really good. Like when I look at it, I'm like it's pretty good. But I still have like some a little bit of fat around like my love handles, like at the back, or like lower ab fat, right? Like that's the perfect example actually, right? You can get to a point where you have a good physique, you can see your abs, right? But then there's like that little bit, like the lower abs. Like my lower abs don't show like perfectly, right? Like I can't see, yeah, I can't see like 6, right? I've never been able to see 6. I've been able to see like 4, and then the lower part, like it's not fat, but like I can't see the separation, right? And it's like that little bit, right? You need to hit the next level. Like you need to be quite low in body fat, and and in order to reach that level, you need to be eating consistently. Like you need to be eating properly. You can't be getting away with eating junk, but just because you're in a calorie deficit, you lose the fat, because you won't, right? You start losing the muscle because your body's not getting enough nutrients, so it's going to start eating from there and it's going to hold on to that fat. Whereas if you're really trying to get down, if you're really trying to get down to like that perfect physique, right, you need to eat clean. Now, why am I going so hard on this analogy, right? We've spoken so much about gym. There are other people you could be listening to that are way more educated than me when it comes to speaking about gym, right? The reason I use gym is that it's just an analogy for your self-improvement journey in general. But here I'm actually speaking more in terms of self-improvement in general, right? And it's funny that I use the gym example because for me right now, like gym is like it's like bottom of all my list of like things I really want to improve in my life. And again, it goes back to what we're saying when we're on the self-improvement journey is like, what are the things you need to be doing that are actually going to change your life the most, right? Now, for me, I know what those things are. For me, like the number one thing is like building my group of like like-minded Christian guys on self-improvement, and we like go through life together. I feel like that would drastically improve not only like motivation and all that stuff, but actually like you guys are pushing each other. You're pushing each other to like the next level. You're surrounded with guys that are like getting after it. It's a lot easier to be like more consistent over a long period of time, and also just the enjoyment of life, right? But I've spoken about that at length, right? So building my group, and then like YouTube slash the podcast that I have with my friend, like just online content creation. Like I need this to get as good as I can at this, because I can actually get like financially free from this. But even apart from that, once you are like financially free for something like this is very fulfilling. Like trying to like, well, you're going on your journey and you're helping other people on their journey. Like it's very fulfilling. So for me, those are like the two big things. And then at work, I'm also trying to like really improve there and learn as much as I can. Like those are the three big things. Gym is like at the bottom, right? But you need to do that for yourself, right? You need to write down a list of the things that are actually going to change your life. They're going to change your life to the point where, yeah, if you fix those things and you do them properly, they will change your life the most. And at some point, like gym is just at the bottom, right? But I'm taking a very long time to get to the point here. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that you're going to hit a point where you have a plateau and you really need to look at yourself and be like, what do I need to do to get myself to the next level, right? To get to the next level, you're going to need to change your mentality. And I think I've spoken about this plenty of times before, right? You need to change your mentality, because once you get to a certain point, it's not going to cut it what you were doing before. You know, being kind of consistent, being like, what percentage can I use? Being 50% consistent, right? Like 50% consistent, if you were to average it out over like 2 years, you're like 50-60% consistent. That's not going to cut it. You need to be like at least 80% consistent, right? If you want to hit that next level. And again, I spoke about the many different, like, I gave you examples of like many different parts of your life that could apply, right? So in order to do that, I've spoken about this at length. You need to change your self-image, right? Because again, to have that long-lasting consistency, you need to have an image switch, because you can't afford every day to be battling with yourself. Oh, I need to get out of bed early so I can go and do this, so I can go to the gym, get it out the way, so I can start working on my business. You can't afford to be doing that every single day. Your willpower will run out, right? Your brain power needs to be used for the higher level things, right? Your brain power, for me right now, my brain power shouldn't be being used by like, oh, I need to wake up now and get started on my routine so that I can record my YouTube videos. My brain power should be being used on like the fact that recording YouTube videos and getting good at speaking and capturing the audience and speaking on topics that are actually valuable and important to people. That's really, really, really difficult. Like that is really difficult. And that's where all my brain power needs to be going, at the things that are actually gonna improve my skills to a point where it will actually like change your life, right? And that's where the self-image thing comes in. Self-image, it simply, okay, when you work on it, it simply makes all the doing the thing like much easier. Like going to the gym should not be an issue, right? Again, your brain power, going back to the gym analogy, your brain power should be used on like going there and actually like pushing yourself as hard as you can so you can actually build muscle, because that's the hard part, right? You can't afford to be using all your brain power just getting yourself to the gym. But again, I've been on that point long enough. I've made so many videos on why you need to change your self-image and how you can change that. You can go watch those on my channel, or just for the sake of time, because I've made, bro, when I say I've made so many videos, I mean I've made so many videos. Like this year alone, bro, I've probably spoken at like 4 hours worth of it, maybe not 4, like 2 hours worth of videos of just me speaking on changing your self-image. But basically, you need to do visualizations, okay? You need to visualize yourself as the type of person who does certain things. You do that over like a 30-day period, 21-day period. You visualize for like 30 minutes a day. That will change your self-image. But again, I've beaten that drum long enough. This video topic is it's a different one, right? So I was speaking about how, I've gotten to a point in my life where I'm like my priorities obviously changed. Like the number one thing is like building my friend group, and then building this YouTube channel, and also at work and whatever, right? But one thing I have learned, especially I learned this pretty early on, like when I was trying to build my friend group, right, is that like you get to a point where you need to do things yourself, right? Like you can't rely on other people. Like when you're trying to build a friend group, like it would obviously be fantastic, oh, you were at school and you just met your friends there, and like that was fantastic. Or when you were young, your friends, your parents and their friends and all of their friends, like all their children, like you guys hung out together and you guys were besties from then, and now your group is sorted. That's cool. But if you're trying to build your own friend group from scratch, you realize very quickly you're not just gonna get lucky and find like someone who's already like building a friend group, unless you meet me, because I'm already building a friend group. But you get what I mean. I needed to become that change in my life, right? Like I'm not gonna go around, I'm not gonna find someone who's building a friend group and be like, yo, Gideon, just come in, and they're like the exact like type of people I'm looking for. They're around my age, they're driven, like they're men of God, and we're trying to be financially free, we have the same visions for life. Like it's just not going to happen. I need to build it myself. That's one thing I've learned. And in your life, you're going to need to do that same thing, right? If you're trying to build a friend group, I'll tell you that is particularly applicable. You have to go and do it yourself. And a lot of things in your life you're going to have to do yourself, right? Like changing your life, I'm sure you realize you have to do yourself. No one's going to come and save you, right? You need to do it yourself. But another aspect of this I want to speak about is becoming your own motivation. And I think this is where I'm getting into the crux of the video, right? Like I'm actually getting to the title. I don't know how long it's taken me. It's probably been like 10 minutes of recording this video where I've just using all these analogies to get to the point, right? So the crux of the video is like, you need to become your own motivation, right? And again, it goes back to that self-image thing. I wasn't just wasting your time speaking about all that stuff early on. Like I was getting to a point. The part of like building your self-image is I want you to picture someone like when I think about this, like I instantly picture someone like Ronaldo, right? Like Cristiano Ronaldo, right? It's like that kind of guy. Like to get to that level, like at some point, like you have people that inspire you, but at that point, when you get into a certain level, you become your own motivation. You become your own inspiration, right? But you can imagine athletes like that. I mean, I don't know who that athlete is for you. It could be like your Tom Brady. I don't know. It could be Novak Djokovic. It could be like your Steph Curry, LeBron, whatever. Like anyone. Like just picture a high level athlete. I use athletes because they're like, it's the most like applicable thing to like our lives. It's easy to turn that into motivation. Like it's easy for me to get motivated just thinking about like how Ronaldo like just built his career, and he was like, when he first came on, he couldn't shoot, and he learned he needed to become like a lethal finisher, become the best player in the world, and then he did that. Like it's very like linear. Like you do this, you improve, and it's like you're building your own video game character, right? So that's why I use athletes, but you can use whoever you want. You can use your James Bonds, you can use your Harvey Specters, whatever, right? But either way, those types of people, guaranteed Ronaldo's not waking up watching, I don't know who his inspiration would be. He's not waking up like watching like old Ronaldo Nazario videos to like motivate himself. He's not watching like Ronaldinho videos, or I don't know who he was inspired by, but you get what I mean. Like he's not watching videos from other people to inspire him. Like he is his own inspiration. The moment that alarm clock wakes up, if he even uses an alarm clock, the moment the time comes to wake up, he's up because he wants to be the best. Like I'm going to be the best, right? I need to do this and that. It's not, oh, I watched this video from this guy, and obviously we're at a certain point in our lives, and I've made a video about this before. Like we're at a certain point in our lives where we haven't built like our mentalities, and we haven't built ourselves into that level of a man, like where you can be like Ronaldo, you just wake up in like your own motivation, and that's just how it is, right? Or you picture like an Andrew Tate, right? Like again, Andrew Tate is not watching motivational videos, bro. He's just not. Like those types of people with like that kind of mentality are not. But we're at a point in our lives where we're useless. Like we're not useless. Like I don't want to use those kind of like terms, but you get what I mean. Like we haven't done anything, right? We still have to do the autistic, like, oh, I need to watch this motivational video so I can get myself out of bed. We need to do the autistic visualizations. I need to visualize myself being this type of person so I can wake up and go do the things I need to do. Like, we're at the point where we need to do that. Eventually, we want to get to the point where we're not doing that, and like, you are your own motivation. But this is the part of doing that. Like for me, as I'm recording this video today, when this video comes out, it would have been like 2 weeks. But I'm turning 22 today, right? It's like these are the ages now where you come off age, right? You start turning from like that little kid to like becoming a man, and you need to start doing these things. Like right now, it's a bit annoying for me to think like, oh, I need to do all these visualizations so I can change my self-image, so I can be consistent, so I stop like binge eating, so I stop like eating all this sugar and all this crap and wasting time scrolling on my phone and everything. Like I need to do visualizations. I need to autistically every day do visualizations so I can build my self-image to become the type of person that doesn't do that. But like, if you are the level of man like you want to be, like again, going back to like a Cristiano Ronaldo, right? It's like they don't. I'm sure they still do visualizations because that's how athletes like work. You do need visualizations to keep like building and stuff. But for his like own self-image, like he doesn't need to motivate himself to go and eat clean, right? But for us, we're at a point where we need to make sure we're doing that, right? And it's fine. Like that's the point we are at in our lives, and this is how we're working to becoming that. But that's how I'm going back to that same point where I'm saying you need to become your own motivation, right? Work towards becoming your own motivation. Now, remember when I started like doing this earlier on in the year, right? I realized that like I was struggling with like motivation because it was hard like actually doing things. So I'd watch like a James Bond Skyfall edit, right? Like it's like sad music, but you see James Bond and it's like, yeah, he's struggling with whatever, like I don't know what he's struggling with. I didn't watch Skyfall, but like you can see it's someone that motivates you going through a tough time. And watching those two people, it makes you resonate. It's like, oh, I'm going through a tough time. And I know James Bond, even though he's going through a tough time, he's still James Bond. He's still going to do what needs to be done. And that was like myself trying to motivate myself as well through that. Right? I was watching like Creed. I was watching like Ronaldo edits. I was watching all this stuff. And I still am. I'm trying to get out of that. But what I tried to do, and I'm gonna be deliberate on like making sure I'm doing that consistently as well, is I try to like just cut that out completely. Like stop watching content completely. Like sit with yourself, right? One thing I've learned is that people cannot sit with yourself. When was the last time, and I know Hamza said this like 2 years ago, when was the last time you sat down just for 30 minutes and stared at a wall? People don't do that. You probably haven't done that. Just sit down and deal with yourself. I haven't done that. I've tried to like do that. Like I guess the closest I get to that is visualizations, but even that, I'm not dealing with myself. I'm visualizing what the ideal version of me will be doing in the future, right? Here, again, I'm not watching content or anything like this is very good. Like this is good conversation, but at the end of the day, I'm still talking about something, right? Like I'm not sitting here. I'm not sat here busy thinking about all the like childhood trauma and all that stuff that I've gone through, all my insecurities. Like I'm not sitting staring at a wall just being with myself, right? We don't do that. And we need to get to a point to where you're able to do that. To become your own motivation, you need to start doing that. Stop getting, even these videos. I made a video before where I said stop watching self-improvement videos, right? Like, yes, you can watch videos for like educational reasons, and I can use Hamza as a perfect example here, right? Like there was a point where you'd watch Hamza and you'd learn like new things that were practical that you needed to apply in your life. But it gets to a point where, and I've noticed it myself, I still watch Hamza videos to this day, right? Where I'm not even watching because, oh, I'm gonna learn something new. I'm literally just watching because he's a charismatic, relatable guy who can give me motivation, right? I'm watching it so I can get motivated, so I can feed off of some of his charisma, right? Just so I can be motivated in my own life. And you need to like start cutting that out. You need to start becoming your own motivation. And it's hard. It's hard because you're stripping yourself down to the bare bones and you're having to like deal with yourself. Like, how do I become my own motivation when, like again, like I can't, like it's difficult for me to motivate other people because I haven't done anything like significant in my life. And that's where the crux of it is. You become your own motivation through actually like building those things. You're like, okay, I am a leader, right? I'm switching the mindset from being someone who needs to be inspired by other people to being someone that inspires other people, right? And that's just it when I speak about like building your own motivation. I'm sorry, I'm just looking down at my notes here because it's a big topic, right? I think the next part that I can speak about is that you need to start becoming like an inspiration to others, right? At a certain point, obviously now, like you're still building that self-image, you're still building that foundation where you motivate yourself, where you don't need other people to motivate you. But you need to start getting to a point where you're an inspiration to others. And if you've like been on self-improvement for a significant amount of time, like if you're someone like me, like where you're watching this video and I've spoken about like your self-improvement journey where you've been somewhat consistent, but not like very consistent, right? if you've got like a similar level of self-improvement to me, you've probably inspired some people, right? Like there's some people I know that look at me and they're like, oh wow, like they're people who inspire me the way, who I inspire the way other people inspire me, right? It's not a lot of people, it's a handful of people, but I think it's a good like way to start motivating yourself to become that person, right? Because we look at other people, you look at someone like, again, I listen to people like your Tommy Shelby's, your James Bonds, your Cristiano Ronaldo's, like you look at them, you're like, damn, like watching this guy, looking at this guy, like he just inspires me. And it's like, for you yourself, if you've done anything significant in your life, there's some people who look up to you like that, and that's quite motivational, because you look at someone and you're like, oh wow, like what like Ronaldo or what like Tommy Shelby is to me, I'm kind of like that to someone else who's younger than me. It's like, that's quite inspirational, right? But the point I was getting at with this is that you need to work towards becoming that person, right? That's part of becoming your own motivation, is that when you become your own motivation, you become a level of man that other people look at and they're like, wow. They're like, wow, that guy inspires me, right? And you want to get to that point, right? You want to get to a point where you're inspiring other people. And I guess for me, like, this is kind of like that. And for me, actually, I can give you like, it's not very personal, but I can give you a story for me that kind of like showed this to me, right? I was making, before I made YouTube content here, I was making self-improvement motivational content on like Instagram and TikTok, right? And it did really well, right? And I just stopped doing it at the I think it was start of last year or something like that. I stopped making content over a year ago, right? Because I wanted to switch to YouTube, because I didn't like the short form like content, because you don't get an opportunity to really speak in depth about like topics like this. It's kind of just like do the catchiest thing, and sometimes it compromises what you actually believe. But anyways, I got a message from this kid. I think it was earlier this year. Yeah, it was earlier this year, and he was like, oh, what happened to your content? I was like, oh no, I stopped. I started switching to YouTube. And then he goes, oh man, like you were my inspiration. In my heart, bro. My heart, I was just like, no. Oh my goodness, that is so sad, right? But then in that moment, I realized, I was like, oh damn, there were actually like a lot of people who I was like inspiring, right? People who were looking up to me, like younger people who were they were watching my TikToks, right? They were watching them, they were getting motivation from them, like it was motivating them to be better in life. And I got like lots of messages like that. And that is what obviously happens when you make like motivational content online. Like it's a no-brainer. But like, you should be aiming to be that in your own life, right? And it doesn't have to be through content. Absolutely not. I think what I'm going at is like, just the level of man you are should just be shown in the world. It should just be shown in the world. Like like people just see the way you dress, like the physique you have, the drive you have, like how hardworking you are. I'm sure for you, I've listed all these like famous people and everything, but even in real life, like there's some people you've just seen and you're like, wow, this guy inspires me, right? It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Like for me at work, right? Like I started working to like doing my articles, and we don't know much like when we started. In fact, we basically don't know anything apart from like fundamental accounting knowledge. We're basically useless, right? And I have my manager who's been doing this for a long time, and he just knows how to do stuff. And I just look at him, I'm like, wow, that is inspiring, right? Just something as simple as that, right? It could be anything. It could be someone you see who's like, maybe you're at church and you see someone who's serving on like who's on the worship team, right, on stage, and you're like, wow, like you're just inspiring, like how good they are at like singing and how like they worship God and everything. Just, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. And when you put it that way, like you can become that inspiration for someone else, right? And again, you don't get to do that without becoming your own motivation somehow, right? And that's where I'm getting at with this. You need to build your own character, let's say, right? Picture like a Ronaldo or an Andrew Tate or whatever. They're not watching motivational videos from other people. They're motivating themselves. And yeah, in line with like becoming an inspiration to others, is like you can actually like lead the next generation, right? And again, it's a twisting of like the way we need to look at things. Going back to how I was saying, the way you look up to somebody, right? You are what that person is to you is what you could be to somebody else, right? It's the same thing where you need to start leading the next generation. And I love using this analogy of a football team, right? So like, when I say football, I mean European football, right? Just so you don't get things mixed up. But honestly, it could be Actually, I don't know how American football works with like ages and stuff, so I'm just gonna stick to what I know. European football. I think of a European football team, right? Look at like Real Madrid, right? Or for those of you who don't know, just picture a team that's been really, really successful, right? And it's had key players, right, who really like made the team successful. And you had like this perfect concoction of a team that was successful over like a decent period of time, over like a decade, right? But then, those players who were leading started becoming older and they had to be shipped out, right? And then you start bringing in the new, like, younger players, right? And ideally you want to sort of integrate them while some of the old guard is still in the team, right? And you look at, again, using Real Madrid as the example, you look at like how now they've got Vinicius Jr., they got Rodrigo, Bellingham, Tchouameni, Camavinga. They have all these players that are in there, right? Like, they're young, right? But there's a point where those young people need to come of age. And I'm always speaking about coming of age because I feel like that's where it should be, like at our lives, at our point in our lives is where it should be working. Like, I don't know, I get inspired by that, like the coming of age thing, seeing somebody who's young, raw, full of potential, step into the role of being the leader, right? That inspires me. And that's exactly what I'm speaking about in this analogy with like the football team, right? Is that like, you've had a really successful team, but like those people have gotten old and they need to be like shipped out. And now you bring in the new young players, right? But those young players, if they're lucky, if things go smoothly, right? Like you bring in a couple of young players, you bring in like 3 superstar young players, you integrate them into a team with the old guard while they're still kind of successful. They're like in the latter years of their success. Maybe they have like 2 more years, right, of like really playing at the highest level. And those 3 like young superstars get a chance to be integrated and learn from the older people, right, for those 2 years. But then once those older people go, that young guard needs to they need to lead like the team. Like, this is Real Madrid we're speaking about. Like, they still need to win Champions Leagues, and they have won Champions Leagues with Vinicius and Rodrigo and like the young players, right? Like, they've won, and that's like what you need to be doing in your life, right? We're like the young people, right? We are the young people, and it's cool like watching all these people like inspire us and stuff. But look at me and you, right? Like, I don't know how old you are like watching this video, but I'm assuming you're around my age, right? Like, I'm 22 now, right? 10 years ago, I remember like looking up, and I think this applies for most people who watch sports, or if you're like, you look at like celebrities like rappers or whatever, but particularly in sports, right? When we were young, we'd be inspired by like sports players, right? Like, you'd be inspired watching, like your Ronaldos, your Messis, your Neymars, whatever, and you'd see like, oh, he's 21, he's 22, like look how young he is, and he's like killing it, right? And then at some point, we've grown up, we've gotten to the point now where we're off that age, and like, you're looking at these young players coming up and you're like, oh dad, he's younger than me, or he's the same age as me. And it's like, that's how like that's a direct depiction of where we're at in our lives now. Is that like, now we need to become, and again, obviously sports is a whole different thing. Like, we're at the age now where I'm not going to become a professional football player, right? That's just not happening now. But in my own life, I can be an inspiration to other people, right? I'm at the age now where I can inspire other people. I have a younger brother who's 13, right? And it's like, I can be an inspiration to him. Like, when they're just other younger people who you just interact with, and they like, again, that thing where you need to reframe it, where it's like, what that person that I looked up is to me, I can be that person to another young person, right? Like, you could just be walking around, you could just be like right now, like, I'm in decent shape, right? I could just be walking, and some little kid who's like 8, some little boy he's just walking with his parents, and he just looks at me and he's like, oh wow, like, that guy's jacked, right? Like, I want to be like that big when I grow up, right? Like, it's just something as simple as that. Like, you could be that inspiration to other people in your lives. And I think it's that coming of age thing where we need to realize that, like, now we're at the age where we need to step in and become the leaders of the future. And I just want to take this analogy into like serving in the house of God, right? Like, this is where, again, if you're not serving in the house of God or whatever it is, like, just try like plant yourself in, right? I just like to think of this again in the same way I use the football analogy, right? In the house of God, like, we've got in Christianity, right? Like, just put it that way. I don't know how to put it. It sounds weird when I say in the house of God. I don't know what that means, but you get what I mean, right? Like, in church, in like your Christian life, and the people you see at church, like the young people you see at church, right? Same thing applies. Like, we're so used to seeing like all these older people that we look up to, and we get wisdom from, and we should. We definitely should. Like, again, I'm not saying go be like a 22-year-old pastor leading a church. We're way too young to be leading a church, right? Again, you need all that life experience. You need to spend a lot of time studying the Bible and being planted in the house of God to be like leading, right? And that's fine. Like, I'm saying, we don't need to be that. But again, think of like the youth, right? When you were young, right? You probably had like the youth leaders, you didn't quite resonate with like the pastor and like the older people in like in their 40s, 50s, 60s. Like you probably didn't resonate with a lot of those people. But like the youth pastor in their 20s, it's like, oh, I like this guy. He's Christian, but he's also like cool, right? Like just something as simple as that. Like as a youth, like that's what you looked up to, like that kind of person, right? They helped you wanna like come to church if that was your experience. If it wasn't your experience, I don't know if it was. I don't think it was my experience either. But you can picture what I'm saying, right? They're kids now, again, at our age. You need to become that person for them, right? They need to look at you and be like, okay, I'm not listening to that older person because, like there's just too, like they're old, right? Like, you know how young people are, like they'll be like, oh, they're old, right? But they can look at you and be like, oh, this guy, like he's actually young, like he dresses nicely, but he's also like, he's got the fire of God in him. And it's like, it helps them see how God can work in your life in a different perspective, right? And you can become that person for them. And again, there's so many ways to serve in the house of God. Like it doesn't have to be like a specific thing. Like for me right now, I'm planning on building like this channel and building a community for like young Christian men to come in, and we can like just so many big plans, like so many things. I just want to provide a community for young men, for young Christian men to come, and we can just build our lives together and everything. But like again, that's like my version of doing that. And I'm also going to church and serving and everything. But like again, there are many different ways you can do that, right? And again, that same thing applies. One day we're gonna be, right? We're gonna be those. Again, you don't have to be the pastor, but you get what I mean. One day we're gonna be those older people that are like giving wisdom to like the younger people, right? We're gonna get into that, and we need to step into that. And at this age is when you start doing that, right? You look at the levels of it, right? Again, right now, like I said, I'm 22. I don't have any children, anything like that. I'm not married, right? But you're gonna get to a point where I'm married with kids, and again, that's another big step. You get married, you're suddenly a husband, right? You have kids, you're suddenly a father, right? And again, you need to start stepping into that role. And as you keep getting older, you get to the point now where, again, those people you used to look up to, you've become that person for someone else, and you need to step into it, right? And that's why I'm saying, like, why not you, right? I don't know what the title of the video is going to be. It's either going to be why not you, or you're the future, or something like that, right? But like, you're the person. Like, you're going to be that inspiration for someone else, and you need to get that in your head. That like at some point you need to step into your own. You need to step up again. Picture that athlete, right? Again, like someone like Real Madrid, right? They had this really successful team, and it gets older, right? And the young people come in, and the fans are looking to those young people to be like, yo, Ronaldo is gone, right? Ramos is gone, right? A lot of the older, like, they're gone. You need to step up now, right? And it's scary, but like it's also inspirational. I think, yeah, you guys can let me know what you think of the topic in the comment section below. I feel like I'm just rambling now, but yeah, I find it really inspirational. But make sure you subscribe to join the Self Improvement Brotherhood, and until next time, I'll see you boys.